Today I have good news for you. Today the good news comes from the book of Ephesus. We've been looking at the 7 churches, and the church we're looking at today is Smyrna. It's no accident that this message today happens to come on Memorial Day weekend, because I think you'll see in the church of Smyrna that there were many who sacrificed their lives. The book of Revelation, of course, is not a book of hidden things. It actually means to reveal. So we're here to reveal. And reveal what? Reveal Jesus Christ, because it's the revelation of Jesus Christ. On the map that you can see on the screen, you see the 7 cities. We know that John wrote from the Isle of Patmos, and he sent this letter to Ephesus. And then there was a regular mail route, and you see it goes north first of all, and the next city is Smyrna. So what John did is he wrote the book of Revelation, and then he sent it, I believe, to each church. He sent it, all 7 books, to Ephesus, and then I think he sent the 7 books on up to Smyrna. So Smyrna got the message, and we're going to look at what that message is in just a moment. First of all, the name Smyrna. It means myrrh. And myrrh is an herb, and it can be a plant or it can be a bush. It can be a tree. It has leaves and berries, and these are very aromatic, and they smell very good, but you have to crush the little berries in order to release the smell. So that's what we're looking at, is the meaning of myrrh. The meaning of Smyrna is myrrh, and myrrh has to be crushed. And we're looking today at the death and resurrection that we see in this message to Smyrna. And we find that in the death and resurrection of Christ, we actually see that myrrh is mentioned. Remember, they mixed wine and myrrh and gave it to Jesus on a stick when he was on the cross, and he refused it. And then there was Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, who took myrrh and aloes, and they were going to anoint the body of Christ. So myrrh has long been associated with death and resurrection. The city and the church have been repeatedly crushed. It is as if the city died multiple times, sometimes from invaders, sometimes by natural causes. This earthquakes, floods, that kind of thing. The city has been wiped out and rebuilt over and over and over throughout the centuries. Actually, throughout the millenniums. It's one of the oldest cities on earth, and we find that the same thing happened to the church. The church was, at least there was an attempt to extinguish the church. And every time it didn't work. The more they persecuted the church, the stronger it got. But that's what the name Smyrna means. Myrrh, being crushed, has to do with death and resurrection. Here is a picture of myrrh, for those of you who are not familiar with it. On the left side is a close-up. On the right side is a picture of a larger bush. And then the letter to Smyrna. It's 35 miles northeast of Ephesus, and it's the shortest letter. And only Smyrna and Philadelphia received no criticism. The other 5 churches, there's something wrong with them, and it's pointed out. Now, I should be quick to also say that no doubt Smyrna had its problems too. But you know what? We have a loving Lord, and because of their great persecution, the Lord didn't want to to criticize them for anything because he knew it would be too much for them to take. The letter to Smyrna was written during a time of vicious persecution, and if you had to identify a time period for Smyrna, it would probably be in the 200s and 300s AD. The church of Smyrna, the message to the church of Smyrna talks about Satan's synagogue and 10 days of tribulation and the decree to execute. And we'll see that as we move on today. The background of Smyrna. It was an old city, thousands of years old today. Even when the book of Revelation was written, it was about 1,000 years old, and some even place it beyond that. It was destroyed by Lydia at about 600 BC, and for 3 centuries, the city didn't even exist. But then Alexander the Great came on the scene, and he said, we need to rebuild this city, and so he did, and he gave the order for that in about 330 BC. The old city was a fortress, and it was high up on a mountain. But the new city was going to be down by the harbor, and it would focus on trade. And the goddess Cybele and the emperor Tiberius were worshipped. There were other gods as well. I should be quick to point that out. But the goddess Cybele and the emperor Tiberius were 2 of the main deities that they worshipped. Now, the emperor Tiberius, it's important to notice that because there was a temple built in his honor, and there were 25 cities that were all wanting to be chosen to have this temple in the Roman Empire. But it was granted to Smyrna. Out of all the cities that said, we'll build the temple, the emperor, the powers that be, chose Smyrna. So there's this huge temple to Tiberius, the emperor, and there, of course, was also a temple to the goddess Cybele. I'm going to show you a picture here in just a moment, but I want to also show you, I also want to say something about the crown of Smyrna because it relates to the picture. The crown of Smyrna. In this message, the reward is the crown of life. And it's so appropriate because the people of Smyrna were famous for the crown of Smyrna. Not the crown of life, but the crown of Smyrna. And there was the goddess Cybele, and there was this city that was built on top of a mountain. And when you looked at it from a distance, it looked like there was a crown. I'll show you the picture. You see on the right, there's the city down by the harbor, but then up higher was this fortress. And the fortress is on this almost cone-shaped mountain, and the fortress at the top is built in such a way that as you approach the city, the sun would shine down on the fortress, and it would look as though the mountain was wearing a crown. And this coin that you see on the left side of the screen actually shows the goddess Cybele, and it shows that she's wearing a crown. And the crown is a picture very similar to the crown of Smyrna. It's not an accident. They did it that way on purpose. The fortress is in the crown. And then you also see that this crown has what would be greenery if it was in color. And this crown is different from some other crowns that are in the Bible because this crown